Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Jarrod Thomas Show podcast. This is episode 8, and this week, what's in the news? Let's talk about it. East Grand Forks is considering ordinances that are going to regulate camping and conduct in public spaces. Now, you might have heard about this over on the Grand Forks side of things, where apparently we have a new police chief in Grand Forks, but he is concerned that really camping in public spaces is a big deal. Now, this is really a target on our homeless friends. I don't know any other way to say it. Of course, your public officials are going to deny it through and through. Your public officials are going to say, we need an ordinance because we just can't have people in Town Square Grand Forks that are going to be running around and camping in places where they shouldn't be. Get that. I understand that. But really, unless you've been to downtown Denver where you've seen real homelessness and encampments in action, I don't think this is a problem in either side of the river. Now, being proactive, something that you should talk about. Again, both police chiefs would likely say, yeah, I think this is a thing. This is a big deal. This is a problem. This is something that we have to keep our finger on, something that we need to watch. I would say, I am not so sure. Now, the city council in East Grand Forks now is considering an ordinance that would restrict camping in public areas and other ordinances that would spell out rules and hours for public parks. Both ordinance changes have been in discussion at a staff level for some time. So again, homelessness in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, it's on the rise. And with our brutal winters, it's a thing. It's something that we need to worry about. In fact, if you believe the rumors that are out there, that in fact, people are being picked up in major metropolitan cities, think Minneapolis, St. Paul, and literally dropped off in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks as a place to be. If that's what's going on, we need to talk about that and less about ordinances that are going to keep people off the streets in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. The other thing, both sides of the river would tell you there are plenty of programs to help people that are in need. So do ordinances like this need to exist? I would tell you, I don't think so. Solutions in search of a problem in already an overregulated society. What you have here is a couple of different bodies of government that are working hard to make sure that you stay safe. Sarcasm intended. Grand Forks District, the public school district, is to offer stoles to Native graduates next year. Parent group still seeks beating on caps. I have a daughter that went through the public school system. It was a pretty good experience. The education portion of it was second to none. My child also had the unfortunate, I guess, timing of having to deal with COVID. So that made everything wonky and weird for a period of time. What I can tell you, and in my observation in my many visits with Dr. Terry Brenner and the rest of his staff, is as follows. They try desperately to make sure that every student has an equal education. They want to make sure that students, whether you get educated on the north end of the city, the south end of the city, or anywhere in between, that experience is similar or the same throughout the entire town. In fact, so much so that they want to build, or they are building, or they've almost built, really, a brand new K-8 building on the north side of our city. They've added a central kitchen and done many other things. That, in part, is strategic from the standpoint that the North End gets a new building. The North End gets a new school. The North End will have a state-of-the-art building on their side of the tracks. So when I think about this, my mind immediately doesn't go to, well, this affiliation and that affiliation, and each needs to be represented equally, because that's really where this will fall. Now, as much as I'm getting to be that age where get off my lawn, and when I went to school, it was, I'm trying to stay away from being that guy. But what's interesting about all of this is that when we draw attention to ourselves, what's the reason for doing it? Is it pride? Because if it's pride, then you should be able to do anything you want, right? If you're a guy that works on cars, if you're a girl that wants to be a nurse, if you're a guy that wants to play college football, if you're a girl that's going to play college athletics, college basketball, then why not go ahead and bead your cap or put some sort of logo on your body that indicates that what your next steps are going to be. Now, this is something that falls into a slightly different category, right? Because this has to do with a group of people that have been disenfranchised really since the word go. And the knee jerk is to always do what? Acquiesce, bend the knee, do what they like, because, again, they're disenfranchised. Now, again, the school district apparently has already made the decision, and they're going to do something. Whether or not they allow the caps to be beaded or not, I guess only time will tell. But what happens out of these things is that some knuckleheaded kid somewhere is going to say, well, if they can do this, then I can do that. And then that's when we have problems, and school administrators stand around going, I don't understand what happened. The only way to do it is to not allow it at all, or to allow all of it. And we're not talking about that here. What we're talking about is allowing a very specific group of people to do a very specific thing. Don't be surprised when this backfires and when kids decide to behave badly as a result. How do I feel about it in general? Well, I suppose if we're going to let kids express themselves, and we've made very, very significant strides in allowing kids to express themselves in the Grand Forks Public School District and beyond, it's not uncommon these days to hear stories of kids that want to dress up as animals or identify themselves in one way or identify themselves in another way. Or we've all heard stories, although none seemingly substantiated, where kids identifying as cats in school districts across the country are allowed to use litter boxes in bathrooms because, well, that's how they identify. So you've already let the genie out of the bottle to some degree. So when one kid wants to wear a cat outfit on graduation day, what say you, Grand Forks Public School District? The only way to do it is to not allow it, or to allow all of it. There is no way in between. So when that kid shows up in a cat outfit, when that kid shows up and decides, I don't want to wear the gown at all, I just want to wear the cap, and maybe I want to wear my stoles, maybe that's what I want to do because that's what I feel like that day, then you have to ride with that. But if the idea here is to treat every kid equal because they've done an equal accomplishment, at the end of the day, what we forget about all of this is that you accomplished one of the biggest moments of your life. We forget that roughly in the country, only about 88% of those that go to high school, which sounds ridiculous in this area of the world, only about 88% of people that go to high school actually graduate. And we're going to get turned around the axle on beating of this or stoles of that or how we want the robes to look. I get it. But I also think that this is an event that shouldn't be politicized. And it will be. And it will be in a hurry. Other things that are on the news this week. Former Dakota Prairie School counselor will remain out of custody without paying bail. This one in particular is extraordinarily frustrating. At issue is he was recharged with child sex crimes 10 months after the original case was dismissed due to some errors in the prosecution. He will not have to pay to remain out of custody as the case progresses. Brendan Thomas Parsley, who's age 49, appeared Friday morning at the Nelson County Memorial Courthouse in Lakota for his initial appearance. He was summoned to the hearing rather than arrested. Parsley continues to be represented by Mark Freeze, prosecutor assigned to the original case. Parsley is charged with Class C felony sexual assaults, Class C felony luring of minors by computer, and a Class A misdemeanor solicitation of a minor. Class C felonies have a maximum of 5-year prison sentences. During Friday's hearing, the defense requested that a $25,000 cash or surety bond set in the original case be reset in this one due to safety concerns. His lawyer, Parsley's lawyer, the accused, his lawyer, argued for a lesser $5,000 cash surety, saying his client was fully compliant with court orders throughout the previous criminal case, shows no indication that he's been in contact with anyone that he has been prohibited to be in contact with. The allegations here are nearly 20 years old for one count, and almost 7 years old for the other 2 counts. He noted that Parsley no longer lives in Nelson County. He is relocated to Ward County, and any suggestion that there's a danger to the community is not credible. We either think this stuff is serious or we don't. 20 years old, 7 years old, a lifetime years old. Either we take it seriously or we do not. If we do not, then this is fine. Because the implication here is just because something happened to me like this 20 years ago, that for 20 years he behaved in a way that was more acceptable in society. At least that's what we think we know, right? Lawyers get paid hundreds of dollars an hour to make you believe one thing or the other. That's their job, and the good ones are really pretty good at it, which I think is kind of the case here. In fact, BTK killer, blind torture kill, 70s, 80s, 90s, resurfaced in the early 2000s. You know that guy? Dennis Rader. You remember him? Dennis Rader was a guy that went on a killing spree in the 70s, went on a killing spree in a little bit of the 80s, and laid dormant for 20-plus years before he killed again. Before DNA evidence, which evolved over the course of time, finally caught up to Dennis Rader. Did it make him any less of a monster during the times when he lay dormant? Did he behave appropriately? Did he mix into a church? Did he fold himself into a community? Was he a good guy? He's a master con artist and a master manipulator. This one in particular, for years, I've often thought that people that participate in this kind of deviant behavior, alleged deviant behavior, belong on an island someplace where they can fend for themselves with each other, where they can practice their own deviant behavior amongst themselves, away from society and free from the people that they have hurt, or in this case, allegedly hurt. There are some crimes, in my humble opinion, that do mean more than others. And we classify them as such, right? Misdemeanors versus felonies versus a traffic ticket versus a parking ticket versus just a mistake that you made while being out and about. You get it, right? I have a little history myself with Mr. Parsley. Years ago, I was officiating a football game, I believe in Walhalla, North Dakota. And I made a call that Mr. Parsley didn't like. And I threw him out of the football game. I believe it's the only person I ever threw out of a football game. He later called my parents' house looking for me so that he could apologize. Good guy, right? Now, that would be an example of a minor offense, of something that would maybe, hey, made a mistake, lost my cool, got my emotions got the best of me, whatever. And most people would say that's forgivable. But there are some things that are not forgivable. And until we hash it out, you need to be kept behind bars. Now, it could be. It very well could be. This was all a misunderstanding. That what happened 20 years ago wasn't what it seems today. What happened 7 years ago wasn't all that it would seem today. But normally, ladies and gentlemen, where there's smoke, there is in fact fire. But if we don't treat this stuff these crimes against children in particular, the luring of minors by computer, these sorts of allegations, which forensically are pretty easily proven, if we don't treat them as serious felony level offenses, then they're going to continue to happen. And the best way to get people to stop with lured behavior is to make the penalty so egregious, Ray Holmberg, that all you want to do is behave. Now, these people that participate in this, that find themselves attracted to children, that have different issues amongst us, are of the most dangerous. In fact, it's not the first time that a Brendan Parsley or somebody like him would become a school counselor, Ray Holmberg, or would work with children almost exclusively in their career. Again, I don't know what happened with Brendan Parsley. I don't. But what I do know is there's enough evidence here for law enforcement to step forward and say, So for 20 years, he laid quiet. And so did BTK. Wichita, Kansas, blind, torture, kill. The only way I'm comparing those two, for those of you that might be getting it a little bit twisted, is that people in deviant behavior can lay dormant for a long period of time. I'm in no way suggesting that Brendan Parsley is a killer. Please, let's add a little critical thought to what you're hearing. But what I am saying is that deviant behavior is deviant behavior. And deviant behavior, untreated certainly, cannot be held forever. So to say that he's allowed to just be amongst us, and then will we be surprised if he offends while he's out? We don't learn our lessons really in North Dakota. I think there's a lot of times when we want to believe that, we're going to give people chances. The part about it might sound a little bit, there's some parallels here between what Ray Holmberg was allowed to do and what Brendan Parsley has been allowed to do. And that is that for whatever reason, Ray Holmberg and the charges that were against him, I think at one point they put a bracelet on his ankle as if to monitor him, but really Ray ignored it. Because why would Ray pay any attention to it, right? I mean, why would Ray all of a sudden think that this was that this is something that had to keep him, get him to behave? So he's out drinking and he's living his life. Meanwhile, he's got these horrible, awful charges hanging over his head. And he's just allowed to live his life. So as I started this part of the commentary here on the Jarrod Thomas Show podcast with, this is either something we believe is awful or we don't. And if we don't, then let's just continue as we have. If we do, then until this is done and until it's reconciled I'm sorry, Mr. Parsley, it's an inconvenience in your life, and I'm sorry, but these charges, especially as a school counselor, are something that we need to take the time to vet through before we figure out what it is that we're going to do here, or what's true and what's not true, and an expedited and a speedy trial are all things that you're entitled to under the rule of law of the land. But my goodness, we learn nothing. We learn nothing. You just let him walk around free. It's unbelievable. There's been no indication of any other minor having made any type of complaint that would warrant a criminal charge in this case, said Parsley's lawyer. So how many kids have to step forward? How many kids do you know have the wherewithal, the ability, the strength, the courage to step forward and say, this has happened to me. Is there more? I don't know. If there's one, that's enough for me. But we don't treat this seriously enough. And again, he may be innocent. He may be innocent. But he also might be guilty. Thank you for listening to the Jarrod Thomas Show podcast. This has been episode number 8. Next week, got a good guest lineup for you. And we'll do some more headlines as well. Kind of like headlines. Headlines are kind of, something that I could get into. Have a great week. Next podcast drops Tuesday at 9 a.m. Thank you.